constitutional reforms. So is the debate over the president's powers and role into another chapter now. A special discussion coming up. The greatest asset here at the Star News channel is that we have a team of people who followed every region, every state, and in fact every...
Welcome back. 2 days and two major controversies. First, he took on the Prime Minister. Today, the President confronted the judiciary with some plain talking. Mr. K.R. Narayanan told senior judges of the Supreme Court that justice is taking far too long in India and that justice delayed is justice denied.
In the 50th year of the Republic, an angry president taking on the system once again. This time the courts. His audience included Chief Justices from India and all over the world. Mr. Narayanan singled out the lower courts for having failed to provide justice while citing the recent case of Priyadarshini Mattu, whose alleged murderer was acquitted.
Even recently, one of the judges in India let a person accused of murder go free on the ground that clinching evidence was lacking. Though the judge himself was convinced that the person did commit the deed he was charged with. Mysterious are the ways of justice. That is why it has been said that the law court is not a cathedral but a casino where so much depends on the throw or the dice.
Mr. Narayanan even pointed out how judicial delays are forcing people to take the law into their own hands.
I was disturbed to read the other day in a newspaper editorial that in some parts of the northeast of the country, the insurgents have put forward as ground for their armed activities the inordinate delay by the judiciary in disposing of cases before the courts.
Mr. Narayanan reminded the audience that justice is becoming increasingly expensive and beyond the reach of thousands of people who look on the judiciary as the last refuge. Sanjay Ahirwal, Star News.
And responding to yesterday's sharp message by the President where he seemed to tell the government not to review the Constitution, Mr. Jethmalani, the Law Minister, today said that the government will set up a committee to do so soon. But he added that the President is not really against constitutional changes, but that in fact he was misunderstood.
A day after the President's speech questioning the decision to review the Constitution, the Law Minister trying to suggest that there were no differences between Rashtrapati Bhavan and the Vajpayee government.
Whatever we may do, and we have a right to bring about the necessary changes in the political and economic system, we should ensure that the basic philosophy behind the Constitution remains sacrosanct. I'm sorry that anybody should have thought that the President was saying that I am against constitutional changes.
By the Constituent Assembly.
In his speech yesterday, Mr. Narayanan had appeared to caution the government against changing the Constitution. The opposition now says that the government should understand the limitations of any constitutional review.
Are they in a position to amend the Constitution on their own? Do they have the requisite majority? Have they consulted the political parties whose support should be absolutely needed if they want to get the necessary amendment? Then what is the purpose? What is the objective? What it would achieve by setting up the review committee?
The decision to appoint a review commission appears to have been already taken, with the Law Minister affirming that the commission will be in place within the next fortnight. With Vivek Rai, this is Pallavi Iyer, Star News.
And joining us now, two former additional Solicitor Generals, Mr. Ashwini Kumar, who is also a Congress leader, and Mr. Abhishek Singhvi. And we are also joined by Justice Rajinder Sachar, former Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court. Let me start with you, Justice Sachar. What's the broad message that you believe the President has sent out to the judiciary? Is it a message, we've heard justice delayed, justice denied, said by several other people, but the President saying it, what's the message he's sending?
I suppose President may be feeling it as many people do feel, but I think when President says this, the other side of the picture, that why there is a delay, gets muffled up, and I think judiciary seems to get all the blame, which is not fair.
Okay.
Well, I think the President is sending out a clear message that he shares the agony which most consumers of justice do feel in India, that the judicial system is under siege. There is an undeniable and an unjustifiable delay in the disposal of cases. And I think the President, as the custodian of the Constitution, was speaking out loud and clear and expressing the agony of the people. And I think it's fully justified in that.
If I may just put this in perspective, I think the attachment of the word controversy may be a little too harsh on this. I was there at the function, and really what the President was saying is what all of us believe. I think nobody can deny the fact that there are excessive delays in the system. Now, a constitutional functionary is entitled to speak his mind in a function like this on a subject which is of general knowledge. And I don't think it should be seen as any controversy as far as this statement is concerned.
Right. So perhaps importance is being attached to it because it comes just a day after he was seen to differ with the Prime Minister on the same podium. You saw that as an exception to the rule?
Now, there again, I think that the difference was more sharply etched out. But one must remember that it's nobody's suggestion that the President's speech or the Prime Minister's speech was known to either of the other beforehand. So neither was replying to the other. Now, there is, of course, I think there is scope for a real difference of views about a whole-scale review of the Constitution versus a tailored, focused amendment. And I think we should be happy that we live in a country where difference of opinion can be aired. It's, I think, also on the positive side a sign of a vibrant, healthy democracy.
But no, I think if you saw the thing, if you notice what the Chief Justice said, and I think that part you should understand, the Chief Justice said very clearly that he was very happy that he had received the warrants of appointment for 3 Supreme Court judges. And please remember, these recommendations have gone months back.
But tell me, Justice Sachar, the two statements that the President has made, one about Constitution review yesterday, even his Republic Day speech really, which spoke out about the need for stronger reservation policies, which even spoke out against untrammeled economic liberalization, today talking about the judiciary. Is this normal, or are we seeing an activist President at work?
Frankly, I would say that you must distinguish between these two statements. I think the first part of the effect of globalization or care for the poor or etc. are something which is basically a part of the constitutional setup, and if the President says that, it's a genuine kind of a statement, especially on a Republic Day.
Right.
But when it comes to the talking of the amendment of the Constitution, I frankly have reservation whether the President should enter into this controversy at all.
Why do you say so?
For the simple reason that this is a political decision. The opposition and other parties may have their own views. They may find that this is motivated. The other may say it is not motivated.
And you've raised a vital issue. Mr. Kumar, is the President willy-nilly getting himself embroiled in politics?
Let's understand this clearly. In my perspective and in my judgment, and it is now well established, that the President of India, in the scheme of our parliamentary democracy, is not a glorified cipher. His views cannot be rejected or discarded as obsolete impedimenta. He has expressed himself, and indeed his duty bound to express himself as the custodian of the Constitution. His guardianship of the Constitution, as Beggot said in the context of the Crown in England, is not an empty thing, it's a real thing, although circumscribed by the parameters of parliamentary democracy and the conventions of the Constitution. Now, if the President can't even express his views, how else can he nudge, guide, warn and caution the government?
So you raised an important point there, but this is not a new debate. It's been on, in fact, since 1960. I believe Rajendra Prasad also raised the question of the powers of the President at that point of time. Why then, 30, 40 years down the line, we come to a situation where every time the President makes a statement which is seen to be close to policy, it's seen as a confrontation between Rashtrapati Bhavan and the
That's why I started by saying that perhaps the word confrontation and controversy is too strong for this.
So perhaps also because it's not been settled yet for a long time.
Partly, but I think also with due respect, it's partly perhaps also to some extent the creation of the media. The Nehru-Rajendra Prasad controversy is well known, but thereafter we have Shamsher Singh's judgment in the Supreme Court, which has established that the President is fully bound by the advice of the central government. But in matters on which he is not bound, the President is not to be a dumb constitutional functionary. He has to speak his mind. Now, the President has carefully chosen in this case to give a view, which is certainly a view which can be held by a functionary, and on an occasion or at a function when he was not bound by central government advice. But at the same time, constitutionally, the President is well aware that if the central government was to take a decision on this subject, he would be bound. There'd be no question about central government not taking a decision.
You have a slightly different view, Justice Sachar.
Exactly. I think what my young friends seem to forget is this. So saying that the President is not like a constitutional monarch, good enough, which only means this, frankly, that if you send a view to him and he has a right now under the constitutional amendment to send it back to the central government. But if you send it back to him, he is worse than a constitutional monarch. A constitutional monarch by a convention in England could still refuse it, though it never does. But under our constitution he is bound to accept it, even if it is totally against his own views. What I am talking of is that this amendment of the constitution is a political question. This is a question of political policies. The president doesn't form part of it when it is being discussed. The president comes into the play. A question of advice or not comes only to play when the government tells him this is what we are willing to do.
So how does the president then relate to the executive in situations like this? If he doesn't approve of an action which he believes the executive is about to take, you're saying he shouldn't go public?
No, certainly he'll tell them. He has to tell them. He has to discuss it with them. But here is a matter which is a part of a controversy in public.
Okay.
Should there be a motive?
I just want to get your reaction to that.
Here I would like to make a very brief comment. This president is known for his sagacity, deep study of the constitution, and is known to have acted after considerable deliberation on anything. If he's spoken out, and I can tell you if he's spoken out consciously, advisedly and decidedly. It's just not that he's just made a speech. Okay. I think that is his way of sending out a message that what is wrong with this country is not the constitution, but perhaps with the inadequacies of the people who have been entrusted with manning and working the constitution.
You don't think, Dr. Singhvi, he could have called Mr. Vajpayee in private and told him about his reservations rather than go public in this fashion?
He certainly could have done that, but I do still believe that the constitutional balance is not affected or violated by the president saying something in public which is not overtly and totally political, but then also fully realizing that he is bound by the ultimate decision of the central government on that issue. I think that's the whole meaning of a constitutional balance.
I think the problem is that you are creating a try kind of a thing. In a democratic parliamentary system, we have the parliament, which is the supreme body. We have the opposition, we have the government. They are entitled to their views totally differently. The president may certainly feel very bad about it. The president may feel and may even talk to the opposition, try to tell them what to do. He may talk to even the Prime Minister what to do with them. But he doesn't join in the controversy.
Right. Well, hopefully the three of you have taken the debate.
Of course, I mean, it is not to suggest that the president is playing any part back.
Right. Fair enough.
I mean, it's not a question. But I think
you have taken the debate forward. Thank you all very much for joining us. Obviously, the role of the president will be looked at even more closely as Mr. Narayanan takes various issues at various public fora. Thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.